Hello, everybody, from this humble area, humble section of Miami, Florida. And we're doing our first show for the AG News Show. I am your host, Roberto Alvarez-Galloso, serving you the best in American music and as well as world music. For me, it is a pleasure and an honor having one of the greatest musicians of all time, Tim Soucy. I hope I pronounced it right.
You did.
Great. Tim Soucy is one of the greatest musicians in the 20th and in the 21st century. And for me, it's a pleasure and honor having him in our first show of 2025.
So excellent to be here.
Tim, I'm gonna make an open-ended question. And we're gonna give you all the time to answer, 20, 25 minutes.
Okay.
Tell me about your past, tell me about your present, and tell me about your future in the musical industry.
Okay. Well, it started many years ago. I was influenced in my life by a couple of relatives of mine. One was my aunt Hazel. She was a piano player and she could play by ear. And she would entertain us kids every once in a while. And I was really startled at how she was able to pick up a song so quickly and be able to interpret it on the keyboard like that. I had an uncle who sang in a very deep voice, and he performed for us many times during Thanksgiving celebrations and stuff. He'd play the spoons and entertain for us, and he had a deep voice like Al Jolson, and he would entertain us over the dinner table. And they were really the only two entertainer performer types that were in my immediate family that had an influence on me. However, my dad would wake us up every Sunday morning listening to the big band stations. He had his favorite station that he would listen to. And every Sunday morning, me and my brothers got to wake up to big band music, whether it was, Tommy Dorsey or Glenn Miller Band and stuff like that. So that kind of music with real instruments, I was hearing at a very young age. And even though it was aggravating to wake up to at the time, it taught me a good deal about the broad spectrum of real instruments out there that I was always fascinated with the sounds of, for sure. So my dad and my grandfather absolutely loved music, and they had an enormous collection of different albums and stuff. And I remember as a kid going to my grandparents' house, and it was quite a big deal for me and my brothers to get to pick out the album of the day over my grandfather's house. And granted, we were little kids. We didn't really know much about music or different styles or any of that back then. But regardless, to say it was exciting to get to pick the album for my Pepe to put on. And he would put it on, and we'd all put a big smile on our face. And it was real instruments played by real people, and I really gained a wholehearted appreciation for instruments in general. And it wasn't until probably age 12 or 13 when I actually got my first guitar, but I was actually writing before that. I got in the habit of writing in junior high. I started reading lyrics to different groups out there. One of them was Neil Peart from Rush. He was just a fabulous writer, and I read everything that he ever wrote. All the Rush songs were written by the drummer, and his name was Neil Peart. I loved his writing. I studied the Beatles lyrics book from one end to the other. I wanted to make sense in my head. How many words does it take to put in one song? And can that vary? And the Beatles kind of showed me and my brother. We were very young, and my Uncle Dickie and my Uncle Donnie, we were always infatuated with their albums too because of my dad's collection and my grandfather's collection. So we'd always ask them about their albums when we were over there. And finally, we got to be 10, 11 years old, and my uncles decided they were going to give me and my brother Al the Beatle albums and the Beach Boys albums. My God, I did not realize how that was going to change my life. My brother and I became incredibly obsessed and infatuated with the Beatles. We listened to every single song over and over, playing those albums over and over and over again. And it really taught us that, wow, this isn't just music, this is art, you know? And I wanted to grab onto that part of music. It's something bigger than what I originally thought it was. And I remember back in the day, my brother and I, we'd be standing in the mirror. He'd have a tennis racket and I'd have a tennis racket. And I was Lennon, he was McCartney, and we were practicing in the mirror like we were the Beatles. And they taught us at a very young age that we could do that too. And so right out of the gates, when me and my brother started learning guitar, excuse me, we actually learned drums first. In middle school, we took up drum lessons. I also took up saxophone, trumpet, played all those things. But as I was taking drum lessons, I was always looking in the other booth and I would see my friend Jim playing on this electric guitar, making all these fantastic noises and stuff. And I really wanted to do that, you know? So when I did get my first guitar, I found out that it was too hard for me. I didn't like it. I couldn't get my fingers to do anything. So I put down the guitar and I remember I got a bass guitar from Service Merchandise back in the day. And it was a national bass, but it was a Paul McCartney bass, the violin shape. So that attached me to the Beatles again. I'm like, Paul McCartney's going to help me learn bass now. So I basically picked up the bass guitar and I studied that for a little over a year. And by then we were already forming our own first bands and starting our own originals. Even though we were only learned 5 chords at the time, we figured out that we were able to write songs with even just 2 chords if we were creative enough. So we basically started writing our own songs back then. And I never stopped writing. I became infatuated with writing. And I just started out with journals, just what I did today, what I seen, what I viewed, you know, stuff like that. And I didn't realize at the time that a lot of the stuff that I was writing down then would become the first lyrics to my songs later on, a few years later. And the first thing I actually did musically was singing. My buddy and I, we used to get in trouble in middle school for singing. We'd be singing harmonies together in class. And I remember so many times the teacher yelling at us to quiet down because we just enjoyed singing at the time. And, you know, back then there was, you know, the 70s were a huge influence music-wise. The 60s and 70s. You know, the 60s had all these Beatle bands and the Who and all that. The 70s had all these people going solo on their own. So, I mean, there was just so much music out there to listen to. Everything from heavy metal Black Sabbath to Rush to Yes, you know, classical versions of rock and roll. And it was just such a huge influence on my brother and I. But we kind of picked our own little style and our own little niche right in between there. And we tried to stay in our own lane, just basically learning how to structure a song, learning how to write a song. But I remember my first infatuation with performing in front of people was actually at it was a go away weekend for our class in school. And we all got to go and camp out at Bear Brook State Park. And I remember it was a Saturday night and we were all around the campfire outside. We had our sleeping bags and everything. Our whole class was out there. And my buddy and I decided we were going to sing for the whole class. So we sang the Elton John song, Your Song. And we also sang a John Denver song called Annie's Song.
Yeah, Annie's Song, I remember.
Yeah, and our whole class clapped and cheered for us. And that was my first sort of moment of, wow, I like this feeling of playing for people. You know, I was always the class clown. So I liked getting attention that way in school, being the class clown and all. I found it was easier for me to talk in front of people if I made jokes first about it. I remember in middle school doing a book report, which that was the most intimidating thing, getting up in front of the class and you have to do an oral book report. Oh, that was so intimidating back in the day. And I remember I did my report on the electric guitar. So of course I talked about Hendrix and all this stuff. But what I did to break the ice for myself was I put on this big afro wig. I had my fly glasses. They kind of glowed back at you. And I had this little electric guitar that my parents had bought me a kit. It was a plastic model electric guitar. I put it all together. I brought that in with me. And I basically had my teacher introduce me to the class. So she opens the door and I come into the class with my little air guitar and my big wig and my fly glasses. And I was, pretending to play the air guitar in front of my class and everything. And that kind of broke the ice for me. And then I told my story about the electric guitar. And from that point on, I was really infatuated with the electric guitar. So as my brother and I continued to learn how to play drums, and granted, we learned how to play drums to Ringo Starr and the Beatles songs, because we found out later on that Ringo Starr was basically like the perfect drummer. He did beats to every kind of rock and roll song. So my brother and I, we learned how to play drums to Beatles music. So now I had the drums under my belt. I learned a little bit about the bass guitar. My brothers and I already had our own original bands. We had a band called Ambush in school, and we were basically the high school rock and roll band. We probably had some of the biggest parties in Merrimack's history where we grew up, and we were playing all our own original music. And at that time, the commercial scene was, oh, no one's going to hire you if you're playing your original music. So we kind of got used to hearing that all the time. No one's going to hire you guys because you're playing original music. Well, I said, the hell with that. I think they're going to hire us as long as we're good enough. So my brother and I, we practiced on just being good and doing our own music really, really good. Well, I ended up getting us booked with all the top bands in the whole New England circuit. And we got to open up for all those bands. And I found out it was really about the relationship I had with the club owner and whether they actually trusted you to come in, bring some people in, and to be a professional, So we proved our worth, and we got to basically play with all the high-end PA systems. We didn't even need our own PA. It was the best. And basically we got to play our own music, and we were rock stars already. We already felt like we had made it, And we never looked back from then. We always played our original. We always trusted that we were going to be good enough to cut the mustard. And so we had our original bands going for, 10, 20 years. And finally, in 2012, this was after I became disabled, because I still had to work a full-time job, because at a young age, I became a single-parent dad.
Mm-hmm.
And so I knew that playing out part-time was not going to be able to support my family and get my kids an education they needed. So I worked, and I worked full-time. I had 4 jobs. I was burning the candle at both ends. I was quite an entrepreneur. I had 2 businesses going for myself. I had my music, and I was working full-time at Coca-Cola. And so I knew I had a good, secure job. I'd be able to pay the bills and raise my boys. So that was actually my first dream in life, was having a family. And so, once I was able to have my children and raise my sons, I became a single-parent dad again 11 years later, when I had another child with another woman. And so that was quite a learning experience for me, not only burning the candle at both ends, but having my sons and beating the odds twice. And it gave me a different type of backbone in this life, for sure. One that I was going to need, no doubt, for all the other things that were going to come in life. But it wasn't until 2012 that I finally decided that I was going to go solo. I had all these ideas, all these songs that I had written all my life. I never really recorded any of them. So I had a real aha moment. I was doing a show with my friend. He's a sound engineer. And we were doing the Carlos Santana show up at Meadowbrook. That's a big amphitheater in New Hampshire here. And we were in charge of doing the sound under the stage for all the commercials and everything. So we were told at the very beginning of the show, you know, anyone working for the artist, don't look in the artist's direction, don't bother them, don't wink at them, don't nod at them, nothing. So basically, that's how the rules are whenever you're a subcontractor working for a band like that. So here I am eating dinner with Carlos's band, and there's Carlos right there on the basketball court shooting baskets next to me, and I'm not allowed to look at him or talk to him or anything. And granted, this guy's one of my heroes growing up. Oh my God. In my opinion, it was Carlos that did it first. You don't need a vocal. Carlos did it with his soloing. And it's like, oh, that's kind of what I dreamed of being. I always wanted to just be a solo guitarist. I thought at age 17 that I was going to go on to LA and be a solo artist and just work in the scene for other artists. But that didn't really materialize that way. But the moment came after the show was over. Carlos was getting ready to exit the stage and take off from the venue. So all us staff were basically pushed into one corner. So Carlos could walk across the stage and exit stage right without anyone bothering him. Well, Carlos gets to the edge of the stage and he stops. And he does a beeline and he walks across the stage all the way to the corner that me and my friend were standing in. He comes right to my face, staring at me, face to face. Carlos Santana. I didn't know what to make of that. He's just staring at me. He looks me in the eyes. He gives me this nod. He grabs me and cradles my face like this. He gives me a nod and just looks at me. Didn't say one word. But within that moment, I felt like me and Carlos had an unbelievable connection. And I felt like he spoke to me subliminally. And basically, he was sticking a pin in my ass saying, what are you waiting for? Get your music out there. What are you doing? I took it that way. And it was really one of those eye-opener moments for me. It was soon after that I went solo and I went into the studio and started recording my own music. And then I went to school at age 17, right out of high school, for 24-track recording in Boston. And my whole idea for that was I need to know what goes on behind the scenes. I need to be the best sound engineer I can be so my band don't sound like crap. I need to know what's going on. So I got the knowledge. I went and I learned 24-track recording. And my God, that was such an eye-opener for me. And that also changed my life forever. It helped me bring a more exact product to market. It helped tune my ear in to the more of a sound I was looking for. It helped me understand the recording process like never before and realize how important that sound engineer actually is. You know, that if you got 4 members of a band, your 5th member is that sound engineer. And it's extremely important that that guy is on the same page with the musicians. I understood that at a young age. And so when we were going out to play, I either did the sound myself, I would play with a wireless system so I could set up the sound on their board and then go back on stage and play the show. And so after that, I started teaching a couple of my friends, my close friends. I started teaching them everything I was learning at the school. It was called, it was Blue Jay Recording Studio. It was the, oh, geez, what was that called? Anyway, it was 24 track recording, and we were learning from some of the elites in the business. You know, Aerosmith had just recorded their last album at this particular studio. So this was the type of place you go in there. Oh my God, I didn't want to leave the studio. To me, that was like heaven. I'm like, oh my God, I could sleep here, get up and go to that soundboard and just go to it and just record. I'm in heaven here. There's a grand piano, or just I just felt all these ideas flowing. It's like, oh my God. And I found out at a young age that the ideas never stop as long as you keep on practicing. I've always been an ideas man. And even at a young age, I was fascinated listening to Jimi Hendrix and those solos, whether it was All Along the Watchtower or so many more of his flavorful solos. I was so in awe. Where was he getting these ideas from? I need to latch on to that. I need to figure out how he's getting these ideas. Because to me, they were like given to him by God or something. I mean, these ideas are coming out of heaven. And I eventually learned how to grasp onto such a concept and be able to let go in such a way where most of my ideas, even a lot of my solos, many of my writings, many of my best, most emotional songs, I ad libbed. They just came out, the first cuts. A lot of times, my guitar solos, I'll hear it in my head already. The first take, look out. All kinds of stuff is going to fly out of my head. And that's usually the heart and soul of the ideas. It's like, yeah, great. And I learned how to grasp onto that just by kind of letting go, but also practicing and practicing and practicing. And I learned that every guitar player out there is a teacher. And no matter who you're listening to, I latched on at a young age to two guitar players in my life. One's name was Jim and one's name was Jeff. And these two guitar players, at a very young age, that one played clean and classical and all this finger picking, and the other guy played mean. He was like Eddie Van Halen and all these distortion stuff, distortion sounds. So I felt I was sitting in the best of both worlds. It's like clean and mean. I want both of that. I need both of that. And at a young age, I hooked up to two particular guitar players, Steve Lukather from the Toto Band and Larry Carlton, who's a jazz player. Both of those guys are session guitar players, the two greatest session players probably of all time. Those two guitar players have played on thousands of people's songs and have made themselves sound like different players over and over and over and over again. That I always felt was the magic in being a good player, is being able to make yourself sound like multiple different players. Take what you're learning and bring it out in you. You know, so I actually like the compliments when people say you sound like such and such and such and such and such and such. Great. I never wanted to be painted into one corner as an artist. I never wanted to say, oh, I only do rock and roll, or I only do blues, or I only do jazz, or only instrumental. I liked too many types of music to just say, I'm going to only do one style. That never worked for me. So I always liked hearing different styles, different types of music. And my two sons, they turned me on to so many other different types of music while they were growing up. You know, things they turned me on to. My oldest son turned me on to Snoop Dogg, you know, and rapping. I wasn't into it initially, but it's a different style of music. I love it now. It's fantastic. And my son, he's the one that my youngest son was the one that pushed me. He said, Dad, you can rap. Why don't you do it? I want you to try it. So I tried it. I did it. It actually came out pretty good. I surprised myself. So I've done it again since then. Granted, I'm no top of the line rapper or anything like that, but I'm not afraid to try any different styles. That's for sure. I'm actually learning a new instrument right now called the cello. And I've always been infatuated with the cello sound. Many of my songs have a cello in it, but I play it on this synthesizer here rather than on the instrument. I figured it was time to learn the real instrument. So maybe in the near future, I will be playing cello, a real cello, on my own music. That's exciting for me. But we played in a lot of different bands. The pinnacle of us playing out, opening up for other bands was we were doing this show in Manchester, and we were going to get to open for a national act the first time. Here are all these guys saying, you'll never get a gig because you're playing originals. And here's my band opening up for the Flock of Seagulls, the national act. It was startling. So my brother and I, we sold tickets. That was going to be our best show ever. The stage was packed. The room was packed. We showed up at that event. I remember the owner pulled me out in the back room, and he tells me we had to deport the Flock of Seagulls last night. So they're not going to be opening tonight. You guys have the night to yourselves if you want. Fantastic. We had already sold out the venue. Everyone was already coming, thought they were going to see a national act and all. So of course, I had to announce that the Flock of Seagulls got deported. Sounds like a ridiculous story, but it actually happened. They got deported. We got the gig. I hired my friend who was doing our sound engineering. I hired him on the spot. I said, why don't you guys open up for us? So they opened. We played the night. It was one of the best shows we ever had out there. It was a lot of fun, though. We had a lot of fans. And even to this day, all the fans that my son and I have gotten all these years, it's basically been driven by our original music. We started our social media probably around 2010, 2011. I knew how important that was. My son had got me to understand that social media was a venue that we could actually use and be able to touch the whole world. So I grasped onto that concept, and I signed up for Twitter, and we had Instagram and Facebook and you name it, all the different social medias, including the TikTok. And our goal was to get as many followers as we could. And so that's what we did. So within a couple of years, we built up 250,000 followers between us. So we already had our network. So regardless to say, by the time the pandemic came and all, my son and I had been set up for years already on the internet. We were already performing online, and all our music was already online. It's available on every platform that's out there. We do our publishing through CD Baby, which has been great for us. Put out 10 solo albums so far, and 6 solo albums for my son Jonathan. So that's about 16, 17 albums we've put out since 2012. So regardless to say, for the first time in my life, I actually have a catalog of music. And it's been nice learning 25 of my songs on the folk guitar that I could just pop out to any venue out there now and do an unplugged set. It's great. And I've been doing that quite a bit at a lot of different functions. It's a good feeling. It really is a good feeling to know that I finally have my own catalog of music. And I really didn't think about it until just recently. Kind of just kept my nose down, kept my head down to the grindstone, and just go, 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 go. Now, ideas never stop. As long as I continue practicing, my ideas never stop. So basically, I do writing in a lot of different ways. Sometimes a song of mine will come from me grabbing my phone and humming a melody in my phone. Sometimes the idea will start from two chords, and I like how those two chords sound together. And I got a little melody going in my head. And so I'll have those two chords. And I end up with all these loose ends out there everywhere. Here's a piece of a song. Here's two pieces of a song. Here's a piece of a song. And so as time goes on, I find that, okay, well, 6 months later, I come up with another part. And hey, it happens to be the third part to this song that I was already working on. So I'll continue and I'll put that whole arrangement together. Next thing you know, I'm writing to the melody. And that song is pretty much completed as at that point. Once I develop the structure for the song, it's pretty much complete, except for my melody. And to me, coming up with melodies is just like second nature. There's billions of melodies out there. And the more you can, trick yourself into thinking differently about those melodies and come up with different beats or different ways of looking at things, you can come up with so many different styles of music in your own head, whether it's even, just to a click track. And I try to do lots of things to a click track these days because it helps keep my timing exactly. So when I go out and perform live, my timing is like a machine because I've been playing to a click track for so many years now. I actually think that being a studio musician has turned me into a way more exact musician. I'm a way better quality musician now than I was in the past. I pay attention to a lot of details that I used to look over before. I used to walk over them and say, no one's going to notice that mistake. These days, I notice it, so I have to correct it. So I hold myself accountable to that. And it seems like, the more I go into the studio and sit with my friend who's a professional studio engineer, he always corrects my ear. He retunes my ear into how things should sound when they're produced, So I'm constantly renewing, keeping the saw sharp. And as long as you keep that saw sharp, it's going to cut well for you over and over and over again. It's been one of the best dreams that's come true for me is getting to play on a song with my son. My son's doing rapping. I'm playing his guitar parts for him. Oh, it's just incredible. I'm playing guitar solos to trap songs. Who would have thunk it? But we're getting such nice compliments that old style guitar playing in with trap music, that really works. A lot of people are digging it. And we're getting tons of compliments about the new style we kind of created. And it's great because, we're probably going to do a few more projects like this in the near future. It's my buddy Jorge, who did the Spanish rap. I was just in touch with him yesterday, and he's looking very much forward to working with me again. He's such a good person. He wholeheartedly believes in it for the same reasons I do. It's just about making good music. At the end of the day, it's about making good music that people want to come back and listen to over and over. And, being an independent artist, you're hit up every single day by people that want to promote you. Everyone and their brother's a promotional agent now. And it kind of gets a little sickening, hearing, we're going to promote you. We're going to promote you. And a lot of this promotion stuff is actually illegal. It's basically one person in a room with 100 phones, and he's listening to all the streams himself. I'm sorry to say that isn't the kind of fans I want. I want real people. So my son and I, we've been person to person for years and years and years now. And we've met so many people from around the planet being person to person and bringing our message right to people rather than relying on promotional crap, because most of it is garbage. Most of it is not going to get you what you want. It's pretend streams. A lot of those people aren't going to come back and listen ever again because there was no people to begin with. A lot of people are fooled by a lot of the things that happen in the music business. A lot of my friends have been taken advantage of. Many, many of them. Many have been taken advantage of to the point drives them away from music. Takes them right out of their creative game. And they lose their luster for the for the love of music, why they got into it to begin with. And the business side of music can take that away from you rather quickly if you don't know what you're getting into as an artist. Many artists have found this out the hard way, whether you're George Michael, Michael Jackson, or the Beatles. Even the Beatles lost the rights to their songs. You wouldn't think it's possible, but at the end of the day, the Beatles signed a contract that said if 51% of the shareholders own that much percentage, they can buy the Beatles out. And that's indeed what happened. 51% of the shares were owned not by the Beatles, but by another entity. And Northern Songs Unlimited came and scooped it all. So even the Beatles lost their rights to all their music. Kind of shameful. Michael Jackson went through the same thing. George Michael ruined his career, basically, because he was at an impasse with Sony. And Sony said, no, you're doing 10 more albums. And we need that done in 2 years. A lot of people don't understand these contracts they're signing, and they get themselves in way over their head. And there's no way they're going to be able to provide that. So they end up at an impasse. In George Michael's situation, he says, I will never work for you guys again. They sued him. 10 years went by. Bye, career. It's really a shame. Really a shame that such talented people like that get taken out by the industry that they propped up. You know what I mean? Yeah, it's no fair, but a lot of that stuff goes on behind the scenes, and people lose the rights to their music on a daily basis as they think, well, the record company, they're going to supply you with the studio time. They're going to supply you with this. They're going to supply you with promotion. They're going to give you this. But, the fine print says you're going to have to do 250 shows a year. And that's going to be your only means of making money. The album sales won't give you a penny because the record company is going to make that money because you're paying them back because they got you hooked into a contract now. And it's very unfortunate that many, many artists find out the hard way. I signed a contract way back in 1991 or 92. I signed a contract with a company for one of my songs. The song was called Will Return. It was called Rainbow Recordings. One of my songs was going to be on this album and was going to be sung by a star. That was the deal I signed up for. Well, that deal never did come to fruition. I never seen the album. Never heard back from the company. I think the company ended up going under. But I always worried about the fact that, geez, what's going to happen with my song? Will Return, I mean, since then, I've put it on my first album and all. But you never know what's going to come back to bite you sometimes once you sign that piece of paper. Because the fine print, you won't understand it. You need lawyers to understand that. And most of us are not lawyers. And that's where the business becomes tricky. Because the business of music is a whole lot different than the music business. They're two different entities. It's like being a sound engineer opposed to being the musician. They're two different things. And when you be a sound engineer, you have to have a different hat on and be impartial. You can't be, well, I'm a guitar player, so I'm going to make sure the guitar is the loudest. That isn't the way it works. When you're a sound engineer, you need to be impartial. And you need to keep that hat on for the whole fluation of the session. And for me, that's been a learned process because I knew when I went to recording school how serious it was to be an engineer and how integral and important that person was. A lot of regular musicians didn't understand that, and they get out there and they're playing their music and it doesn't sound very good. And they don't have their own engineer. They got the sound man for the room doing your sound, and he knows none of your songs. It doesn't do you a big favor when you're playing live out there, I'll tell you that. But that's as far as what the future holds, I mean, my son and I, we're going to be working on his 7th solo album soon. We have a lot of the songs already done. I've been dragging my feet. I need to finish up my guitar parts on his songs and some harmonies and stuff like that. But we'll have his next LP. We'll probably do a single sometime within the first quarter. And then I'll probably put out another single as well. But I'd say by the third quarter, I think we're going to be releasing my son's next album. And hopefully we're going to have a couple more music videos as well, because we have our videographer now in place, and he knows our style. He's willing to work with us. So we're definitely looking forward to doing another couple videos. That was really cool, doing videos with my son. You know, seeing my son and I in videos and in music together, it's going to be forever. And the nice thing is now I got 2 grandchildren as well. One of them is 10, one of them is 5. And I've been teaching them ever since they were born. I've been teaching them about all my instruments, whether it's guitar or bass. I have everything at the studio here for the kids to learn. So they've been playing on the keyboard and playing on the guitar and stuff, and the cello now. They get to play on all that stuff. And I'm hoping soon, in the next few years, my grandson will be coming aboard with us. I already got him. I'm already talking it into his head. I tried to get him to do a rap last year. He's not quite ready for that yet. But the concepts, I'm already putting the concepts in his head. And these kids are pretty smart. You're better off teaching them when they're young, because they learn so fast and so much. I think my granddaughter is going to have some musical skills myself, because I've already caught her. I had her set up in my room, and she had this little folk guitar, and she was playing on it. And I heard her from the other room, and I came and I peeked around the door, and she's got the guitar, and she's just strumming, doesn't know what she's strumming or playing, but she's literally la 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 la, mocking, doing some melodies. I'm like, oh my God, this is where it starts. Perfect. And she's only 5. And I sing to her all the time, and I could see her amazement with that. So I think she may end up being the musician in the family. But both my boys know how to play guitar and drums. My son Jonathan, he kind of became more of a producer than me. And I think that was because I exposed him to all the aspects of music early on in his life. So he was always, down in the basement with the drums, the keyboard, had the sound system going, the recorder going. And him and his buddy were making their own music at a young age. So when it came to him writing his own songs, I hit while the iron was hot. I sent him to music lessons, and he was taking singing lessons. He took piano lessons for a couple of years. And so right out of the gates, he had a lot of talented friends that were in the arts as well. So he hooked up with his friends, and I started buying him a few different beats. He said, Dad, can you buy this beat for me? Buy this beat for me. So I started purchasing him a few of these beats, and we buy him outright, so he would own the whole thing. And him and his friends, my son was writing all these songs, writing the parts for his friends, and his friends that were doing musical theater and stuff had incredible voices. They were all trained in theater and opera and everything. He had 3 different singers coming over our house on a regular basis. Incredible vocal parts they were putting together. So I was producing all this music for my son. And I just, to this day, I'm so thankful that he struck while the iron was hot. And he had the sensibility to write all these songs and drag his talented friends into it. Now he has a catalog of music that he's always going to have for the rest of his life. And I'm really excited for that for him, because now he's got something he can be proud of the rest of his life. He goes to work and he hears one of his songs play over the loud system, over the speaker system. He's like, how the heck is my song playing on there? It's because a lot of our songs have been picked up by radio stations now. And those radio stations and those services are pumped out to everybody out there. Those services and those playlists that our music is on is now being played at different venues around the planet. And that's just the greatest feeling. It really is. And it's nice to see that our hard work is paying off. And it does work. You know, diamonds take time. Doesn't happen overnight. It takes a lot of consistency. It takes staying on course. It takes never giving up on the dream. So many people are knocked off their pedestal and distracted in life because life is happening. You know, the same thing could have happened to me. Being a single parent dad, what time did I have to do anything for myself? I didn't. But I never, ever stopped the dream. My mom told me, she always told me, rest her soul. She said, dream and always dream big, and you're never too old to achieve your dreams. Don't ever think that. And so I grabbed onto that with my heart, and I've held on to it forever. And here I am, 62 years old now, and my songs are being heard by everyone in the world. I've been on TMZ Live. It's the third year in a row now. I got to be a guest host on TMZ every month. And that's kind of nice. And that's mostly because of my social media following and stuff. So it's kind of nice that I've never really had to pay for a promotion either. We've been blessed where we've gotten on the top 100 podcasts in America over and over again. And since that time, it's kind of funny, but a lot of those original shows that I interviewed on have all become pay venues now. Now the artist has to pay to go on their show, has to pay to get their music heard, has to pay for everything. There's so many interviews I did in the past. Now those people are charging the artist. And it's just really shameful because the artist thinks they're getting this boatload of great stuff when they go and do a podcast with some nobody out there. And it's just not true. And so for the artist to pay $150, $250, how many years is it going to take for their song to get that money back? How many streams is it going to take? It's going to take you about 25 years of streams to get the money back that you just paid for that podcast that no one's really going to see. And it's not going to get you more fans. So for the indie artists out there, be careful. Be careful what you wish for. And if you're going to dream big, but keep your cards close to your vest. Always keep your cards close to your vest. This is your music. You created it. No one else did. Hold that to your heart. Don't let anybody take that away from you because it is your music. And you could lose those rights like that. Just because someone says to you, hey, I think you got something there. Why don't you come on into my studio and blah, blah, blah. We'll record that song for you. Now you've gone in, you've recorded it at their studio. They own the recording. Many artists don't understand that. Once you go to a recording studio, I learned many years ago, that sound engineer is so important, he gets a percentage of that recording. Those studios get a percentage of a hit song. If you have a hit song on the radio, the engineers get something for that. They get paid for that as well. You know? And so you really got to be careful of what you give away out there as an indie artist. And fortunately, I've never really given any of my songs away. And right now I'm working on a lyric book for myself. I got my son working on one as well. And hopefully in the next few years, I'll be able to put that out and have my own lyric book, excuse me, with some notes as to, what happened behind the scenes of whichever song. each song kind of has its own story. Each creation has its own story. Not all of them come out of my own bio and things that have actually happened to me in life. Some are fantasy writings. You know, I think like an actor as well. I've always been a very creative person. I've always thought like an entrepreneur myself, so I've never had a hard time thinking outside the box, put it that way. But I'm looking forward to making some new music with my son, that's for sure. We're still in the process of promoting the last album, which just came out a few months ago. There was a few different sounds on the last album. I tried a little bit different of a formula. There was more piano ballads, love songs, which I had never done in the past. That piano ballad song I've done is actually like probably one of the first love songs I've ever done, but it's become so hugely popular. I can't believe it. It's gone past all my other songs. So you see, by experimenting, I also come up with different formulas that help me keep in tune with my listeners. You know, they're kind of telling me what they want to hear a lot of times by the songs of mine that become popular with them. So I do take notes of that stuff as I'm going along, and the things and the styles that people want to hear again. I try to grab onto that and keep those formulas going for the future. And it's definitely been an incredible ride so far. I'm looking forward to playing out a couple of gigs soon. I joined this singer-songwriter group a few months back. It's called Song, and it's basically singer-songwriters from this whole New England area. People just like myself, original writers, and we come to this session once a month with one of our original songs. We play it in front of the group. We talk about it with the group, talk about behind the scenes with the song, what they think it's about, if they have any ideas for improving on it. So it's a whole different type of forum for me, but it's come my point in life where I'm sharing my skills back with the community and all, and teaching them. I want to help raise them up now, you know, teach them how to be better writers. You know, so I've offered my services to a lot of those folks, and many of them are just so talented, and I can't believe they haven't put out their own songs yet. So I told one of my friends, I said, listen, I'm an indie artist. I've always been. I said, you need to get one of your songs out. I said, I will help you do that. I said, I'm a recording engineer as well. I will gladly help you get one of your songs out if you'd like. And he took me up on it. He said, oh, that would be fabulous. I would love to do that. And so I'm going to help share some of my skills with some other artists out there so they don't have to fall in the same hole. You know, I figure whatever I can share with folks is going to make them better at the end of the day. Like with my recording, I taught two of my friends. Those two friends turned it into a career. My friend Peter Peliquin, he's not only a sound engineer, but he's also a teacher. He's a professional sound engineer. He's worked with some of the biggest in the business. And I remember going back to school with him because I learned analog recording. These days, it's all digital. Back when I learned analog, when you edited the tape, it meant physically cutting the tape and finding the spot to put it back together to match it up perfectly. These days, it's all done in a digital screen. You highlight it, you delete it, it's gone. It's a whole different thing. So I had to go back to school with him to learn all about the digital era. So he got my son and me up to par with the new day and age of technology. I got myself a studio on my laptop. We use Pro Tools, is what we use for a digital audio workstation. And that to me is very similar to what I grew up with in the recording studio. And all the other fundamentals that I learned in the studio are the same. Your vocal mics, how you record stuff, where your mic placement is, what type of mics you use, what rooms to set up in, how to use reverbs, delays, all this kind of stuff to colorize your music after the fact, you know? But really, at the end of the day, being a good recording engineer is all about coming up with that crystal clear, perfect track, whether it's a guitar or a folk guitar or an electric part. It's playing that part the best you can with the timing exact, and being really analytical and being your own best judge. You got to be hard on yourself, because if you're not, someone else is going to be. And they're going to be hard in a way where you're not going to get the gig because of it. So it's important that the artist takes their sound to heart. Before you're going out there and presenting your sound to the world, make sure you understand how to present that sound so it's going to make you shine. Because many artists have super talent and they go out there and they don't have their own engineer that understands their music. And a lot of parts are missed. The solos didn't come up in volume like it should have. There's all kinds of little intricacies that happen during the time that the song is going on that affects people's ear and how they hear it. So being a sound engineer is really important. And yeah, I thank God that my friends got into it and never got out of it, because my friend took it to a level up here, and he lives right down the road from me. So I'm able now to record in my own studio. And if I want to do an upgrade in my production, I go visit my friend. I can take the engineer half off for a little while and just listen back to him and retune my ears in again. It's a very nice thing to have, and I'm one of the lucky ones. But I would suggest to any other indie artists out there, learn what you can about audio engineering and recording, and always bring your own engineer to your gigs. Make sure someone understands your songs before you're presenting it to an audience, because it'll make you shine more. You want to look the best you can when you go out there. She didn't work that hard practicing for nothing. You practice hard for a reason, because you want to go out there and knock their socks off with a good product. And in order to truly achieve that, you got to remember all the things that go into that. And one of those is the importance of a sound engineer. So to all my indie friends, learn about it, study it, get your knowledge on simple recordings. Go out there and listen to how your music sounds to the rest of the folks. Play with a wireless system. Go out there and hear what they're hearing. It's gonna matter, and it does matter greatly, But yeah, and that's about the future. A lot of things happened growing up that infatuated me with just playing in front of an audience. I loved that feeling from a young age. we got to do Dave Maynard's community auditions at a young age. We were probably 14, 15 years old, and we were performing at a mall, and there was probably 350 people there. And it was myself, my brother, and my two friends, and we played a cover song by Bread. It was called If. So we played that. We played that song by Bread. I was on the bass guitar, but we got to play that in front of a big audience. And I gotta say, I wasn't scared at all. I felt at home. It was a good feeling, a warm feeling. And so I always wanted to maintain that. I thought, wow, being on stage is where I belong. I really felt natural and normal up there. And the more I did that over time, it just became easier and easier, and even the last few years, just popping around to a few clubs and doing an open mic, I just love that. It's fantastic fun. And a few years back, my friend and I were on a ski trip up north, and we had our folk guitars with us. And there was this little club in town. It was the only place open. So we had our folk guitars. We didn't even have guitar straps with us. So we ended up using a phone cord. We pulled apart the phone, used the phone cord for our guitar straps. And we were walking around in this old main street in this little town. And northern Vermont. It was right about in Canada, somewhere around there. And we were out in the street playing our folks, and we seen this club. And I had an idea. I said, "Hey, Dave, let's go to this club and we'll perform." I said, "Follow my lead." He goes, "I don't know, man." I said, "Follow my lead. Let's go." So it just started snowing outside. It was a beautiful night. It's snowing, and we got our folk guitars outside. But we walk in the club, and the music stopped. And all the people at the club, they look to the door, and they see us coming in with our guitars. And they're all looking at us like we're celebrities or something. So they stop the music, and they start requesting songs to us. And I said, hold on. I said, we're not going to take any requests tonight. I said, we're going to do an original set. And I picked out the loudest guy at the bar. And I said, you're going to start the singing. And so we just started jamming a blues. And we just started playing, had the crowd clapping and everything. The guy was singing off the cuff. We played for about 40 minutes. And just everything was totally off the cuff. It was one of the greatest gigs I ever had. It was just so fun. Everyone in the whole place was into it. We were all singing, laughing, having fun. It's like, wow, this is what it's always been about, you know? And it was just one of those things. Everyone had their pictures taken with us after the gig and everything. But it was one of those things. They never knew who we were, even after the gig. We never even told them our names, but they all thought we were famous people. So I grabbed onto that, grabbed my friend, we pulled it off. And today we talk about it. It's like, wow, that was one of the funnest gigs. Just going in there and taking over the room like that, you know? Spontaneity. I've been driven a lot by that in my life. Ad lib and spontaneity. That's life. Sometimes we don't know how things are going to happen, and that's okay, as long as you're headed the right way.
I do want to congratulate you on such a great career.
Well, thank you so much.
What you have said. You have a really illustrious past, present, and future. Plus, I want to commend you for the advice that you give the future and the artists. A few weeks ago, I recorded in my YouTube for the AG News show and the other program. I have the Americana Bistro Grill in English. Plus, I also recorded the Spanish version. There is, I think, I don't know if I sent you the recording.
I did. I loved it.
It was a recording concerning digital rights and rights as an artist.
It was perfect that you bring that to light. I loved the subject.
Yeah, I want to you take advantage of this, of what you just said, to tell all indie artists, Spotify or any other digital media, I'm not going to knock them. We need the digital media.
Yep. It's there now. We have to deal with it.
Regardless of the digital media, my advice to independent artists is take a look at the contracts before signing. Because there are some of these companies, I'm not saying that they engage in it, but I'm saying that there are some that might have some hidden clauses in the contract, which gives you sort of like the publicity, yet at the end of the day, you lose all of your rights, and you also lose your identity in these contracts.
Absolutely.
They steal your identity.
If it can happen to George Michael, it can happen to you.
Yeah. I personally prefer audio and CD, but I'll get to that later. But regardless of audio or CD or digital, please take a look at the contract. If you are not aware or if you do not understand it, even though the contract is in English and we understand English, or those who speak other languages, they'll understand it, they're going to put clauses that you will not understand.
Absolutely.
Which means, take a look at it. If you are not sure, do not sign it. Take it to a friend who's an indie artist, or take it to a lawyer.
Absolutely.
A specialist in these and these subjects
Great advice.
because it will really hurt you in the future. It will really hurt you in the future, or in many ways it could hurt you. It could hurt
Yes.
you that you could lose your profits, or you could lose your identity. In other words, they will play the music, they will name you, but you get nothing.
Exactly.
So please take my advice, but also take a look at Tim Soucy's advice. And please do not sign anything that you will not, that you do not understand. This
Yeah.
is my message for indie artists.
Another thing that they should do is sign up with one of the pro organizations. Sign up with ASCAP or sign up with
BMI.
BMI. Yes, exactly. I've been an ASCAP member since 2009, maybe. Both me and my son signed up for that. And the thing about, having your music ASCAP registered as well is one of my songs a few years ago and was picked up in Europe by a talent agency. They paid me through ASCAP a one-time fee to have my song sung by their artist on their album. The same way I can, play an Elton John song or play someone else's song just by licensing it. You have to pay a fee. But that happened with one of my songs. I got a fee of $250 sent to me, a one-time fee. And that was so one of my songs could go on someone else's album with them singing it. But it's still my song. And the way, like I told my son, I'm getting older now. If someone else can make one of my songs into a hit, I'm just as happy. I'll be just as thrilled. I got a lot of great songs. And I bet there's so many different artists that could pick those up and make magic with them. I know it. Or I wouldn't have written them to begin with.
Of course. In addition to being careful about signing any paper, I'm going to add a personal idea. If anybody agrees with me, fine. If they don't agree with me, I'll accept the criticism. I recommend that I'm recommending that the artist, but I'm also recommending that the consumer, while digital is good, and we have to deal with digital, deal with AI in the future, although I have my doubts, I do recommend one thing. There's one thing that will never go away, even though there has been attempts by the recording industry and the agencies to do so. You talked about analog, but I have a feeling that vinyl, cassettes, are making a comeback. There's even been one instance. I have yet to find it, but I've been told about it.
Yeah.
I can't verify it, so don't fact check me on this one. This is verified from a close friend, a close relative, that they're even recording reel to reel.
Yeah.
I have vinyl.
Yeah.
When I could order from an independent artist, I will order vinyl. I will order cassette, and I will order CD. Why? When you order vinyl, CD, or cassette, or if you could get your hands on a reel-to-reel, fine, get your hands on a reel-to-reel. You actually are paying and giving the money to the artist.
Absolutely.
Digital, it takes a lot of time, a lot of plays, a lot of visits before even the artist takes a look. Personally, I use vinyl, CD, cassettes at home.
I wish my albums were on vinyl.
Yeah, if this is true, and if I could get my hands on it, I would get my hands on reel-to-reel because I had a reel-to-reel player, and if I get a reel-to-reel music, I'm definitely going to buy a reel-to-reel player.
I still have my reel-to-reel.
Use one or an old one, but I will definitely get it because the artist will receive it.
Yeah.
Plus, you as the customer are in possession of the music, of the literature.
Yeah, and a lot of people don't understand that an MP3 sounds different than a wave track. There's
That's
different
true.
types of mediums with the digital files. They don't all sound the same.
Of course, you listen to vinyl, you listen to CD, you listen to cassettes, you even listen to reel to reel.
Yeah.
It's original. You feel the sound. You don't feel
Oh,
it
yeah.
in digital.
Yeah. You can
Of
get a lot
course,
more medium in.
of course, I'm going to be using digital when I'm driving my car.
Yeah.
That I will use digital. Why? Will I use digital in my car and not at home? At home, I keep my CD collection, my LP collection, my cassettes, and if I have any reel-to-reels, I do have some reel-to-reels, but if they ever
Yeah.
make a comeback, I could use the reel-to-reels and keep them at home because
Yeah.
if I were to play them in the car, the sun could damage, the
Yeah.
winter could damage, even though it doesn't happen, but it could happen. Your car could get stolen, you lose your collection.
Yeah.
Or in the case that it has happened to me 2 times with 2 of my car falls in love with the CD and eats it.
Of course.
And for me, I can't have that because I value my vinyl, I value my CD, I value my cassettes, and if I also value the old reel-to-reel tapes. When you have the new ones, I'll probably value them as well.
Yeah.
So please, if you could buy vinyl, CD, cassettes, cartridge, reel to reel, go ahead and buy it because you're giving the artist money and you're also giving yourself something that you're possessing. I order CDs and vinyl for home.
Yeah.
I listen to the digital
Yeah.
and the car. And
Mhm.
again, and I repeat this, please do not, the artist, please do not sign anything that you do not know. Send it to a lawyer. I do want to thank Tim Soucy for coming at such a last minute for this first interview of 2025 in the AG News Show. It was very interesting. We loved your story, and we just simply wanted for you to share your story.
Oh, so great being here with you.
Besides what we talked about, your music is in Spotify. You have yet to record, like you said, you have yet to record vinyl and CD.
Yeah, I've just been that digital distribution is all I've opted into so far. I mean,
Yeah.
granted, I wish I had the funds to do everything in vinyl because I would have already.
Yeah,
And that's what it comes down to at the end of the day.
yeah.
You know, you got to pay a certain fee up front for the publisher to make your songs available to those 90 other platforms out there, whether it's YouTube, Spotify, or there's so many different ones now. I see a different one every time I look on CD Baby. There's so many digital services out there now, and new ones pop up all the time. And yeah.
Of course, you're on YouTube, you're on CD Baby, and you're also on Spotify. Any other digital media that you're on?
Apple Music, iHeart Music. Jeez, I'm drawing a blank at all the mediums. There's so many
Those are
names.
the only ones that you remember because they're
There's so
like
many.
digital medias everywhere.
Yeah, pretty much every digital platform that's out there, my music is available on.
Great.
I think there's at least 75 of them.
Great.
That's a lot of different mediums.
Yeah.
And I guess some of those are specific to different countries now, probably.
Yeah.
Yeah.
On my part, as host of the AG News Show, my show, AG News Show, the Americana Bistro Girl, and also in Spanish, El Noticiero RCAG, we're only available at YouTube, Brighteon, BitChute, and Rumble.
Huh.
Rumble is one of those. These are the newfangled video storage channels.
Yeah.
When you don't have YouTube, you have the other three. And
Yeah.
the more the merrier I'm going to be finding. I too would have loved to have recorded my shows on reel to reel. I would have loved to have it recorded on cassettes. I would have also loved to have it recorded on videotape, VCR, video cassette, or on video reel to reel.
Yeah.
That I'm still trying to find where I could do that.
Mm.
And meanwhile, I'm still digital. And
Yeah.
you can find me in all of this. Plus, I'm gonna steal a little thing from PBS.
Yeah, there you go.
PBS, you know how PBS and other public televisions ask for funds to maintain their stations.
Yes.
For us to keep going, and for independent artists to keep going, please visit the independent artists, buy their albums, visit their websites, go to their digital media, buy also their cassettes and CDs if they have anything physical
Yeah.
or digital, buy it. If they have a website, go to the website. If you could give to them via whatever, digital or even check or whatever, go ahead and do that.
Yeah.
We in the AG News Show, as well as the Americana Bistro Grill and Noticiero RCAG, we also thrive on donations. Why do we thrive on donations? Do I want a lot of money? No, but I want enough money so that the independent artists could be heard, especially in today's world.
Yeah.
I'm not multinational or multimedia. I'm just one person promoting all of the independent artists.
Mm-hmm.
And we do need funds to keep ourselves going.
Oh, absolutely.
You could get, if you want to send me funds, you could send me funds via Zelle. For those who don't know about Zelle, Zelle is a really great place where you could donate the money. It's Zelle.
Yeah.
PayPal I accept, but mostly accept Zelle, Zelle, and you could donate to Zelle via my email address, R as in Rhode Island, C as in Connecticut, A as in Alabama, G as in Georgia, 62@gmail.com.
Yeah.
For me, it's been a pleasure and honor having Tim Soucy. I hope you come back again and keep rolling with the YouTubes and all the digital media. And when you get a vinyl, let me know about the vinyl. I will gladly buy the vinyl or the cassette or the cartridge.
Absolutely.
Or the CD or even the reel-to-reel.
Yeah.
And for us, remember, we're here for the independent artists, and we're also here for the listeners who want the great music. This is Roberto Alvarez-Galloso of the AG News Show from this great little corner here in Florida, signing off until next time and inviting people to follow the quote of Laura Borie, the famous Texas singer-songwriter. Be love, and also follow my quote, peace in, peace out, and peace everywhere. Until next time. Thank you.
Peace to you.